I encourage you to have a seat here. I'm going to introduce you to Thomas Christianson. Thomas is from the Des Moines area, I believe it is. Okay. He's married to his wife Alex. They have 3 boys, Gabriel, Emery, and Caden. Thomas is a graduate of Faith Baptist Bible College and has been working in the insurance business for the past few years. Thomas is candidating as a pastor at a church next week in Indiana, so keep him in your prayers. He's been kind of moved to that direction now in his life, and so I encourage you all to pray for him as he seeks to do God's will. All right, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mr. Christensen. And you move whatever you need to move, however you want to move it.
All right, I'll bring this down here.
Very good.
If that is all right with you. Thank you. Good. If you want to move this, however, so they adjust it right. Can I put this down a little bit? That's about right. We're going to be in Psalm 46 today, so if you want to head there, you may. And it's too far down. There we go. Psalm 46. So as he said, I am in Des Moines right now. I grew up on a farm in western Iowa. My dad farms over in Harlan, if you know where that is, clear over near-ish Omaha, down that way. Grew up there, grew up going to church in Carroll, Iowa, under Pastor Tim Capon, who's now the Iowa rep. Actually saw him yesterday. My sister got married, and he officiated my sister's wedding yesterday. So I'm married, have been for 4 years. In August, it'll be 4 years. My wife, Alex. I have 3 boys. Gabriel is 7 and can talk the legs off a centipede and still have room for lunch. Emery is 3 years old and will find a ball in any room he's in and will promptly chuck it across the room. So I have to learn that a little bit at home. And then Caden is 10 months old and almost walking. He pulls himself up. He can stand but not quite balanced. So he's frustrated that he can't run and keep up with his brothers, but he's coming along well. That's kind of my family dynamic. He still gets up a couple times at night, so Alex bears the brunt of that for sure. Yeah, kind of stereotypical young family, kind of doing our thing at church, and we go to Community Baptist Church in Ankeny under Pastor Sean Lundberg, if you know him. He used to be a dean at Faith, and we just built a building over in the north side of Ankeny. Just doing all of that. So, Psalm 46. Notice this morning you have the verse that drew me to the chapter. Be still and know that I am God. And that's the verse that drew me to the chapter. But I wanted to dig in further and just learn more about the chapter as a whole. This is one of the few psalms that was not written by David. This was actually written by King Hezekiah. So I want to give you some of the historical context behind the psalm itself before we dig into the chapter. So the historical context, there's 2 characters. You've got King Hezekiah, who wrote the psalm, and you've got, there's an impending war, is the historical context of this psalm. The war is between King Hezekiah and Judah/Israel and the Assyrian army, led by King Sennacherib. So King Sennacherib, the context here is that he has just basically gone down the line and defeated several nations, and Judah is next. Judah's next in line, and it literally has been boom, 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 boom. Sennacherib has gone down through, taken captive or wiped out several nations right before here. Judah is next in line, and Sennacherib sends a messenger forward and says, "You're next in line, we're coming for you, and we'd like you to surrender because it'll go quicker." It's essentially what he says. And Hezekiah sends back the messenger with the message that no, we're not going to surrender. We're gonna stand and fight. Sennacherib then writes a letter with the messenger coming back and saying, guys, you're going to completely get wiped out. Think of the nations right in front of you. They were all trusting in their gods. There's no difference here. You're going to get wiped out. Let's just cut out the formality of the war and let's get this over with. So Hezekiah takes that letter and goes to the temple and prays over it, sending the messenger back saying, no, we will trust in our God. We're not going to just surrender and give in. God has given this to us. We're going to hold on to what God has given us. Sends the messenger back. Goes to the temple and says, prays. He very vehemently prays to God and says, Lord, it is in your hands now. Yes, we'll gear for war, but this is not so much a war. This is an ant praying not to be stepped on. We are in your hands, and Lord, we give ourselves to you. That is the context of this passage. I guess to go a little further in, God answers his prayer. The Assyrian army does come. They are camped outside the gate. They are basically preparing. It is well known that the next day they're going to bring the war, and it's going to be short. So Hezekiah prays, and he implores that God save them, and the Lord answers. In 2 Kings 19, that is the sister chapter, or the sister passage to this chapter. The angel of the Lord goes out to the army that's encamped outside their gate, and if you're familiar with the passage, the angel of the Lord kills 185,000 of the enemy soldiers. And so that's what he wakes up to the next morning. Hezekiah and the Judeans, they wake up, and instead of all of the clamor of an army getting ready for war, they look out over the gate, and there are 185,000 dead people. So that is when he writes this psalm. The emphasis of this psalm is the presence of the Lord with his people and the difference it makes when we trust in him. So with that being said, I want to read through Psalm 46. There's 11 verses. We'll read all through. Hezekiah writes, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, even though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea. Though its waters roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with its swelling. Selah. We'll come back to that word Selah again. There is a river whose streams shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacle of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her just at the break of dawn. The nations raged, the kingdoms were moved. He uttered his voice, and the earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah. Come, behold the works of the Lord, who has made desolations in the earth. He makes wars cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and cuts the spear in two. He burns the chariot in the fire. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. And again, the Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. From this psalm, I want to just draw a few observations from the passage, and they're related to resting. Like I said, the be still and know that I am God is the verse that a lot of us are drawn to. Different times in our life, we're troubled or whatever. And we're reminded of that reminder, be still, know that I am God. So I want to look at 4 different ways that we should rest, drawn from this passage. The first way is that we should rest from fighting. Verse 9, he makes an observation. Speaking of the Lord, he makes wars cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and cuts the spear in two, and he burns the chariot in the fire. You know, Scripture talks a lot about spiritual warfare. We've got Ephesians 6, put on the armor of God. 2 Timothy 4:7, Paul talks about having fought a good fight, finished my course, kept the faith. He implores Timothy to don't have a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Maybe not the entirety, but a common theme in the Old Testament is Israel pretty much at war with everybody because they're God's chosen people and the nations around them don't want that. So it's a common theme of Israel at war with various people. But I think it's an accurate observation from this passage that we should rest from the fighting sometimes. As Christians, I mean, we're supposed to be at war to a degree with the culture around us, with the sin that's around us, with the sin that's within us. We are to fight these things. And fighting is tiring, and it should be. But there are times where it is appropriate to rest. Charles Spurgeon made an illustration of this. He was a preacher in the 18th century. He made an observation about resting. And he used the illustration of the laborer out in the field with the big scythe. So you've got the long handle and the long curved blade that they use to harvest. So you've got the guy going through the field, cutting down the oats or the grass or whatever it is. And he's laboring along. He's going for hours and hours, toiling, sweating, doing the work that needs done. And you see him after a while, and he stops and stands there in the field, and he takes the sharpening stone out of his bag, and he takes his scythe and he's sharpening for a little bit. And he's standing there, and the other workers may pass him on by. He could be doing so much work, and he's just standing there, and he's just fiddling with his scythe. He's sharpening. He's taking a little bit to stop and to sharpen. I think it's, and not just I think, it is appropriate from time to time to take a season of rest. And, you know, we're busy. Sometimes we have to be very intentional about that rest. But it is appropriate to take those seasons of rest and refresh ourselves for the work that continues to still need done. You know, the laborer doesn't stand in the field sharpening forever. He then goes on, but how much more efficiently can he go on because he has sharpened his blade? So I think it is appropriate for those things. First is rest from fighting. Secondly, rest from fear. Back to the context here, what is Hezekiah, what has he just gone through? He has just, he's preparing for war. And as much as it's not going to be a fair fight, they're still going to put up a fight. And they're still going to fight as much as they can. When he says in verse 1 and 2, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. That's what he's feeling at that moment is, I could not have done this. This is very much God's doing to deliver us from this. Someone who would not fall, he who would not fall when the earth is shaken must cling very firmly to God. It's appropriate to rest from fear and to give praise. That's the nature of this psalm, is it not? Rest from the fear that I went to bed last night and I was in fear for my life. And I wake up this morning and that fear is taken away. It's appropriate to pause and to give praise to God. if you know the context of that word Selah, it is a really beautiful word. It's not one that we really use today. Selah is, the point is to take a pause. Take a pause from worship. It was something that they used during the worship that they had. And the leader would indicate Selah. And what they would do is take a moment and pause and reflect on what they had just sung or said. So, just a couple of observations about that word. One author writes, "Here as before, lift up the heart. Rest in contemplation after praise. Still keep the soul in tune. It is easier to sing a hymn of praise than to continue in a spirit of praise, but let it be our aim to maintain the uprising devotion of our grateful hearts, and so end our song as if we intended it to be continued." It is appropriate to praise for that. That's why he sits down and writes this psalm, and he says these things. God is our refuge and strength. He says, "The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge." We are thankful for that. And it is appropriate to take those times to continue on in the spirit of worship that we had, but to take that moment and to pause and praise. Rest from fighting, rest from fear, rest from distractions, thirdly. So in the psalm here, Hezekiah is writing from his perspective, most of it. But then down in verse 10, he transitions, basically speaking from God's perspective. And he says, "Be still and know that I am God." When he says, "Be still," this one's not as explicit in the passage, but think about it from, if you're going to be still and reflect on whatever you need to reflect on, it behooves us to not be distracted at that moment. So, we do need to rest from the distractions around us. Two categories. First one is busyness. I'm the father of 3 boys. We're busy. 2 of them are in sports, doing the stuff that they do. Taekwondo, tumbling, soccer, all that stuff. It's easy to, every night of the week, if we wanted to, we could be doing some sporting event, we could be doing something, we could be going to friends or family's house. It is very easy to get caught up in busyness. Life events this last year. Last summer, our basement flooded. Ankeny got 10 inches of rain in the span of about 4 hours, and half the houses in Ankeny flooded, but we lost power, some pump didn't work, got flooded. We got about 5 inches of water in the basement. I can tell you that kneeling in rising water is not a relaxing feeling. Power's out, you're trying some way, how can I get this pump to work so I don't get water in the basement? Didn't work, we ended up getting it. Ended up through that whole process that, you lost some stuff, nothing crazy. We ended up remodeling the basement. Through that process, I watched God pave the way in front of us. Insurance came through just enough for what we needed. Family and friends were able to lend a hand at the perfect time. We're kind of on the cusp of, do we remodel it, do we not? That kind of pushed us to remodeling it. Paved the way in front of us. It was exactly that. 2 months later, Caden was born in August of last year, and I have 2 other boys. I kind of thought I knew the process. He was born and promptly spent 2 weeks in the NICU, which is not crazy. It was kind of unexpected. But through that process, God paved the way in front of us. He had low blood oxygen, fluid on his lungs, just some stuff that it wasn't hugely life-threatening, but enough to keep him there. God allows me to have a job that has paternity leave, which is not a thing. And that allowed me to be able to watch the other two boys while Alex focused on Caden at the hospital, all of that. Amazing blessing that came at exactly the right time. That was August. November, we completed a process of adopting Gabriel. Gabriel is Alex's but not mine, and his biological dad has never been part of his life at all. And God has allowed us that process of adopting him. I mean, it wasn't a court battle, but court processes are never fun. So, that whole thing. God allowed us to an attorney that we genuinely enjoyed working with. He allowed the funds to adopt him. He allowed just every step of the way. He paved the way in front of us. Different stuff. I mean, we're active at church. We do lots of stuff at church. We're active at home. We do, like I said, sports. We do reading. We do all kinds of stuff with the boys. If any moment is free, we always have this available, right? To scroll and go through Facebook and all that stuff. And even when we can't have a phone, when we're driving, there's radio, there's noise to be around us. There's constant stuff that we have. It is appropriate to pause and stop from all of that sometimes. And when he says be still, we need to take that seriously. And even if we have to schedule our rest, it is good to do that. A lot of us will take a nap this afternoon. Sunday afternoon, when you have little boys, it tends not to be a thing. We rest. We rest from those distractions that are around us. There's the busyness of life. There's also attractions that I think we need to rest from. Take a guess at how much is spent on advertising in America in a given year. Simple Google search says 206 billion, which is a number I can't really fathom, but it's a lot. Corporate America spends a lot of money making more money. Advertising, telling us the things that we need. Are you guys familiar with Patch the Pirate with Ron Hamilton? Is that a name that rings a bell? He wrote a song called All That I Need. There it is. The lyrics to this song are this. When I look around at all this world offers, I begin to crave the things that I see. I must keep my eyes on Jesus, my Savior. He's promised heavenly treasures to me. All the pretty toys shine brightly around me. All the pretty houses glisten and gleam. Riches seem to offer peace and contentment, but it's just a lie. It's only a dream. All that I need is my faith in Jesus. All that I need is my home above. All that I need is my Father's mercy. All that I need is my Savior's love. And that's exactly the perspective that we need to have, is rest from those the attractions that are all around us. Keeping up with the Joneses. We gotta have the better house, the cleaner kitchen, the better car, all that stuff. The tools we have. We gotta have a better phone. I mean, especially teenagers, but I mean, we all want nicer stuff, right? My wife is very particular about having a clean kitchen, and she tends to want a lot of that. As far as being distracted when it's not perfectly clean, which on that note is cleaner than I would keep it. So. It behooves us to take that rest from distraction and from attraction that's around us. Lastly, also from verse 10, be still, but for a purpose, and know that I am God. Rest in the knowledge that God is God is the fourth one. So rest from fighting, rest from fear, rest from the distractions that are around us, but rest for a purpose, and that is to remember that God is God. You know, He's sovereign. I said He's paved the way in front of us, and He does that. He doesn't take the trials and the opposition away. He helps us through it. And when we trust in His sovereignty, He does make it smoother from time to time. He still allows us to walk through them, but He makes it smoother, and He paves the way in front of us as we step. Our rest, because we're believers, our rest is different than unbelievers. And yes, all of this stuff is primarily to believers. The most important decision, obviously, is salvation, whether or not you've trusted in by faith alone, in grace alone. But past that, our rest is different because we trust in the sovereignty of God. I have a friend at church, Avery and Elizabeth. They were pregnant with twins last year, and 2/3 of the way through the pregnancy, I don't know how many weeks that is, 26, something like that, they actually ended up losing one of their twins and gave birth. One was alive, one was not. And I watched Avery go through that, and yes, he grieved. I watched him very much grief coupled with joy at the son that was born, and it was a mix of emotions that it was cool to watch from, the arm's length, that you don't go through every moment with them. But I watched him trust in God and trust that he will see his one son again, and trust in the full joy of the son that was born alive. And I watched him go through that, and I watched a church family come around them and act as the church should act, and comfort them and help them through that. And they're still dealing with it a little bit. Liam is 4 or 5 months old now, so there's still going to be some moments there. But I watched him go through that grief coupled with joy, and I watched him go through that with hope. Because God is sovereign, and because, yes, it's extremely hard, but it's not impassable. On the flip side, I'm on a Facebook group with dads, just dad stuff, and there was a guy on there who I don't know, but he shared that he also lost a son around a similar time. And I watched him, just his short little Facebook post, with absolutely no hope. And it was heartbreaking to see, but it was interesting to see that difference in dynamic, because here I have my friend who's going through it with very much hope, and I watched another person go through with no hope. The rest that we have in the knowledge that God is sovereign changes how we do our life. Go back to the context here. Hezekiah has just woken up that morning expecting to see a camp of soldiers preparing to exterminate him. And he wakes up instead to 185,000 corpses. Again, a big number that I can't really fathom. The population of Ankeny is 60,000, so it's 3 times that. And all of them dead in the field out here. That's what he's looking at as he writes this and saying, God is my refuge. God is my strength. He is a very present help in trouble. Take the time to be still, even if you have to schedule it. Take the time to rest in the knowledge that God is God. He is sovereign, and He's able to help us through our lives. Rest in the assurance that God, who can smooth out the plain with His hand, He can throw mountains into place with great care. He cares for you. He loves you. And He holds you safe in His protective hand. And in that we can trust. Let's pray as we close our time together. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for our time together. Thank you for this body of believers. Father, we praise you and we thank you for the blessings that you have given, are giving, and will continue to give. And Father, we pray that we will always trust you, not just when life is easy, but when the rain and the storms come as well. Help us to trust in your sovereignty and to continue to love you for that. Father, give us a good day. In Christ's name I pray.